Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mini Ministry. My name is Rachel, and I am here to share biblical truth with you. We have been going through a study of the book of Genesis, but before we dive into that, just a quick little 2 cents I want to share with you. The past couple weeks have been extremely heavy within our country and in our world. We had the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We lost, just yesterday, we lost Vodi Bakum, another great man of the faith. And I know sometimes we can be downhearted and downtrodden when these things happen. It's okay to grieve, my brethren, but don't stay there. Don't grieve as those who have no hope. We know that they both trusted Christ as their Lord and Savior. And now our mission, which is the same as when they were alive, by the way, is to know him and make him known. So while we go through this season of difference in our country and in our nation, I pray that you would just seek the Lord, seek everything he has, and seek his word, because that's where you're going to find truth. So just wanted to share that with you. All right, we are going to jump into our next focus of our Genesis study. Now, I love doing this because I want you to get like this, I would say Cliff Notes version, but it's Holy Bookworms version here. My version of the cut downness of the Bible. I do this for my kids in the church and in the schools, and I absolutely love it. It's a great way to remember the high points of what we're talking about so that sticks with us. It's not about memorizing each individual word and every single passage and every single thing. It's about us getting the overarching picture of what God is showing us so we can understand it and grow in holiness that he asks for us. So if you have your Bibles, feel free to grab it. If not, I pray that you look these up later so that you can read the accounts for yourselves, because there's a lot of other tidbits in there that are really good. We're going to start today picking up in Genesis 25. We left off last time in Genesis, and we had the death of Abraham, and now we're going to go on to the next patriarch of the faith, okay? This is going to take us to all kinds of twists and turns, and it's going to be so much fun. So pull yourself up by your boots and prepare for an epic adventure. All right, so Genesis 25, starting in verse 19. We're going to kind of go through some of this here as we kind of run this down. We go through some genealogy and some stuff like that, and we know that Abraham has Isaac, his son, whom he sacrificed. He didn't actually sacrifice him, but he would have. And Isaac grows up and marries Rebekah. Fun couple things you need to know about Isaac and Rebekah here to help you understand the patriarchy and to help you understand who they are and what God's going to do with them. So first of all, Isaac marries Rebekah. Rebekah is a daughter of Bethuel, sister to Laban. And it's interesting because he sends Abraham has sent somebody to their land to find someone for him to marry, and finds her at the well and finds out that it's family, and that's exactly what they wanted. Isaac, when he marries Rebekah, is 40 years old. Now, this is important because not very often in the biblical account are we given exact ages when a lot of things happen. You are, like, example with Abraham and Sarah when they have their child. And there are moments of that. But there are a lot of moments that we don't have exact dates or ages for things. And so I always find it interesting when God makes sure to point that out, that this person was this old when these things happened. So Isaac was 40. He marries Rebekah. Now, interestingly, of course, naturally, you'd want to have children, right? I mean, Abraham was given the promise that he would have descendants as numerous as the stars. So naturally, for you to have descendants as numerous as the stars and as much as the sand on the seashore, you have to have a lot of children. But here's the catch. Rebekah was barren. Rebekah's womb had not been opened. They were married for a long time. In fact, they were married for 20 years before God granted their request, which this is just another reminder of patience. God does not always give us everything that we want in the time that we want it. I'm sure Isaac and Rebekah would have loved to have children immediately. That was customary in that day, to have kids right away. That was part of the point of marriage, after all. Be fruitful and multiply. But they were not given that pleasure. They waited 20 years before Rebekah got pregnant. And then, as if that's not crazy enough, right? You wait 20 years to get pregnant with your child. And I'm sure they rejoiced greatly when her womb was finally opened. And there was room in the womb. That's my pun for the day there. But then they get pregnant. And they don't get pregnant with just any child. They get pregnant with twins. Now, I find this fascinating. This is the first evidence of twins in the Bible that we see. I'm sure it had happened before this point, but the fact that it's pointed out here is interesting. So they have two boys, Jacob and Esau. These are going to become two of the most mischievous boys that you've ever met. And actually, to be honest with you, while yes, they are mischievous, they are boys, their parents are mischievous with them and creates a whole kerfuffle of problems. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Okay? So Isaac was then 60 when the boys were born. Now, I always tell the kids at church, I don't think time is now like it was then. I can't imagine having my first kid at 60. That's crazy. But here's the thing. I don't think 60 then was the same as 60 now. And I think we have to keep that into our mindset when we look through ages in the genealogy of the Bible. So they get pregnant and they have these twins. Esau grows up to become a skillful hunter, skillful hunter, a man of the field. So Esau is the guy who goes out. He can see the game. He knows how to get it, how to bring it back home. He works the field. He works the land. He knows what's going on. Very helpful guy to have around the house, I would assume. Jacob, however, is slated as a quiet man. Now, we don't really know exactly what that means. I'm guessing a quiet man, one, means he's not a hunter. He's not a man of the field like his brother Esau. I would think that maybe he's more of a homebody, maybe. He does a lot of the other kind of things of work, which can be just as important, but it's just not held to the same caliber for some reason, okay? And so they each have their own kind of jobs, their own roles, their own personalities are coming out of that. But here's a problem. The parents begin favoring one over the other, okay? And this is not good at all, okay? Isaac loves Esau, and Rebekah loves Jacob. Now, I'm sure they loved both the boys, but sometimes parents can form a bond with one child over the other, and that can create a problem. God, unlike us, God has no favorites. He loves everybody, right? He longs for us all to repent, for us all to go to heaven. Jesus died for the world, after all. But these parents know they have favoritism, and they're not going to hide it. In fact, it's going to cause quite a rift here in just a minute, which is going to create a whole other kind of kerfuffle. Yes, that is my favorite word right now, kerfuffle. Okay, so we have this favoritism shown by the parents. One is favoring one over the other. But then we get to this point towards the end of Genesis 25, and this moment occurs that just I've always find hilarious, okay? So when in that day and age, you have a birthright because you're the firstborn. So when you're the firstborn, that means you're the one who's going to be the one to inherit everything. You will get the house, the money, the land. You will be taught the trade of your father. You're the one everything's going to do. You will be taking care of the household, all these things. If something were to happen, the firstborn's the one all that falls onto. Very important. To have the right of a firstborn was a very special thing. And they took it very seriously. We don't so much in our day and age have that delineation. We don't go by necessarily the first one who was born necessarily gets X, Y, and Z. We can share that with whom we choose. It's not saying that you have to give it to the firstborn. Well, here's this problem, okay? So I'm going to actually read it because this moment is something I actually really love. Okay, it says, once when Jacob was cooking stew. So Jacob is making some stew. So a quiet man, again, I said he was probably the home guy, right? So he's the cook. He's the guy who does the stuff inside the house and makes it good. He was a chef, okay? He's cooking stew. Esau comes in from the field, and he was exhausted, the text says. Esau had been out chasing game, doing what he does, working the fields, finding the animals. He had just exhausted himself. And he comes into the house and sees Jacob cooking the stew. And he's like, give me some of that. I'm exhausted. I'm going to die. I think this is slightly ridiculous right here, okay? I'm about to die. Give me some stew. And Esau's like, would you give me your birthright for a cup of stew? Now, again, the birthright is very important. You wouldn't give that up for anything, let alone a cup of stew. This, my friend, gives a whole new term to the word hangry. We use this term a lot. You're so hungry that you're mad and you do something stupid because you're just that hungry. We get hangry, it happens. But this moment takes the usage of hangry to a whole nother level, and I absolutely get cracked up at it. So, let me eat that stew for I'm exhausted. Jacob said, sell me your birthright right now. Esau's like, I'm going to die. What use is a birthright to me? And Jacob said, swear it to me right now. So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank and went on his way. Then Esau despised his birthright. Okay? So Jacob sits there, has this awesome stew, cooking over the fire, smells really good in the house. And Esau's like, I need that. I'm going to die because I have worked so hard. Jacob's like, well, would you sell me your birthright for it? And Esau's like, I might as well, because if I don't eat, I'm just going to die. Again, hangriness to a whole nother level. So he does it. Now, mind you, I'm guessing that he didn't think he would call him out on it later, that he just did it as a brotherly gesture, like, just give it to me or I'll die. We say stuff like that all the time, not thinking you're going to actually call someone on it, right? That you're not going to say, oh, well, you promised me this. You know, it's kind of like a pinky promise. You remember those? We used to do pinky promises when we were a kid, and we thought that was like the greatest thing in sliced bread. We thought if you gave someone a pinky promise, that was like the best way to promise something, and nothing could happen. Yeah, that's not true. Okay? So Jacob gives Esau the stew and the bread and feeds him. And it then says that thus Esau despised his birthright. After he had eaten, he had realized the conversation that had taken place. He had realized exactly what he agreed to, and he now despises his birthright. Okay? Because he's given it to Jacob. You're not supposed to take that back. That's it. You did that. We do stupid things when we're hungry or we're tired or we're overly frustrated. That's why God tells us over and over again to just stop and pray, to stop and think, to take it in, and not to just react. And this is a great example of that. Had Jacob, I have to be careful because I get Jacob and Esau mixed up a lot, so that's why I keep referencing myself. Had Jacob just stopped and thought about what was really being asked of him, he should have said, my birthright is not worth a cup of stew. My birthright is everything to me, and I'm the firstborn, and I have every right to the birthright. You are not the firstborn. Therefore, no, I would never do that. Find something else that I can do to get this cup of stew because I'm really, really hungry. That would have been the smarter way to go about it, but that is not what happens. He's hangry, and he just can't take it. It's kind of like when your kids ask you for something and you don't want to have this whole big explanation in the moment. You're like, yep, just fine, go do that. And sometimes we don't think about it till after the fact and we're like, yeah, I shouldn't have let them do X, Y, or Z. That's what happens when we don't take the time to stop and think everything through. And that's what happened here. And he sold his birthright for a measly cup of stew and some bread. I mean, this is like, in their day and age, a winning lottery ticket to be the firstborn. Something only you have. To give that up is astronomically insane. I mean, would you just hand a winning lottery ticket to somebody for a cup of stew? Now, granted, my husband loves his tacos. Like, he really loves his tacos. So much to the point that he might give up a winning lottery ticket for tacos, depending how much money. He'd probably ask that question, but we don't know, right? We just know that, would you do it? It's interesting to see how these brothers react. And this begins, I think, what we see through the next couple chapters of Genesis. The brothers kind of begin to despise each other in a whole nother level, not just because he has now sold his birthright, but because they're now going to see each other differently. And it's going to create all kinds of problems and kerfuffles and all kinds of issues. So that's what we're going to see through the rest of this. Okay, so then we get into Genesis 26. Excuse me. And Genesis 26, God reiterates the promise to Isaac like he did to Abraham. Okay, he's reminding Isaac, remember, just like I told your father You're going to have descendants as numerous as the stars. Just like I told your father, X, Y, and Z is going to happen. I made these promises to your father. I will keep them with you. And he's reiterating these for a specific purpose. He's doing it so that Isaac knows who God is, so that Isaac trusts and walks with God. He does this because he wants him to know who he's walking with. And that is so important. We need those reminders. We all need those reminders. Okay? Isaac settles into the land of Gerar, but then he does something absolutely slightly moronic. Okay? He goes in and he takes his wife Rebecca with him, and he sits there and he's like, okay, you got to tell them that you're my sister because they're going to see how beautiful you are, and they're going to want you for themselves. And if they think that you're my wife, this could end bad. Does that sound familiar to you guys? I imagine that if you were in my class, your brain would hate. You're like, wait a minute. Didn't Abraham do that twice with Sarah? Yes. You're correct. Good job, class. Yes, this is exactly what Abraham did with Sarah that caused a kerfuffle. And now Isaac's doing it. I find this absolutely hilarious. Like father, like son. The apple does not fall far from the tree. Isaac gives the same lie. And it's just, I just sit here and shake my head like, what makes you think what makes you think, Isaac, that is the right thing to do? I don't know. Apparently, it was very strong throughout this land that beautiful wives were taken, because why else would you make this lie? Why else would you go about this? So they obviously had a legit fear of this happening, but Abimelech wasn't having it. He's like, why did you lie? Why did you do that? You make me look terrible, right? So they get rid of that. They take care of all that. There's then all kinds of moving around. There's lands. They go from place to place. They dig a whole bunch of wells. Lots of conversation about who owns the wells. Just craziness occurring, okay? At the end of 26, we find out that Esau marries two women that his parents don't agree with, and that is going to create a problem. And actually says it brings them distress. So we don't know much about these women. We know the lands they came from. But I just find it interesting that who you marry affects your whole family. We don't have to think about that. Somebody once said, you're not just marrying your partner, you're marrying their whole family. And that is so true. We forget that. Yes, you're marrying that person to be married to for the rest of your life, which is awesome. Marriage is God's design, man and woman together for life. But you are marrying their family. They're going to become your family. And so who you marry does affect a lot of things. And it says that they made, at the end of 26, they made life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah. It doesn't tell us how. It just says it made it bitter. I'm guessing from reading of the text that it's the land they came from. Maybe they were not God-fearing women. That would be a good guess, I think. Ones that they were Hittites. And so when you marry outside of that, there was a reason God was telling people throughout the Old Testament to marry from certain clans or certain tribes, because he knew people's hearts, and he didn't want your heart to be taken away from God. And that could be something that's associated here. In any case, it makes them bitter, and they're not happy with it, and their lives are not swell because of that. Okay? So now, that's awesome. Okay? So, and Esau, ironically, was 40 when he married these women, just like Isaac was 40 when he married Rebekah. Apparently, 40 was like maybe ideal marrying age then. I mean, if you did that now, if men started getting married at 40, people would be like, why'd you wait so long, right? I mean, it's kind of interesting and laughable almost when you think about that. All right. Then we're going to get into 27. Genesis 27. This is the highlight of my day here, right here, okay? So we have our back thought now of Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Esau. We have their life account in our minds now. Knowing what we know about the favoritism, about the birthright, and about the animosity that was grown between this household, we go into Genesis 27 with a very interesting look. So Genesis 27 tells us that Isaac is now old and blind. All time has passed. He was 60 when he had his kids. He's now old and blind. And it's been at least 40 years because his son grew up, he was 40. So they're at least that old. The boys are at least 40, if not older. I'm guessing they could even be older than that. But Isaac's now old, and he is blind. dude can't see. Kind of like me without my glasses. If I take my glasses off, I can see shapes and I can make out kind of where things are, but I can't see anything specific. So I understand how he feels. He's probably truly blind. I'm not quite blind. So Isaac calls in and he asks for Esau. He says, hey, I want you to go hunt and make me my favorite meal, and then I will give you the blessing of the firstborn. Okay? Now, this is fascinating. Okay? Absolutely fascinating. Whoop, I flipped too far. Okay? So Esau shouldn't have the blessing. It should go to Jacob. Jacob was given the birthright. Now, whether the parents knew this moment happened between the boys or not, the Bible doesn't tell us. But Jacob should be given the firstborn blessing because he was sold the birthright. But apparently, I'm guessing he didn't know that. So he tells Esau, go hunt, make my favorite meal so I can bless you. Okay? Well, Rebecca, his wife, hears this outside of the tent and hears what's going on. And she realizes what's about to happen. To receive that blessing of the firstborn is huge. And you want that. You want the better blessing. So Rebecca hears this and entices Jacob to go and get the blessing instead. Now, again, this shows the favoritism of the parents. They're plain favorites, which never ends well. So here's what happens. Rebecca's like, okay, I'm gonna go get something. We're gonna cook a dish. You're gonna take it into him, and then you will receive his blessing. And Jacob's like, okay, we just have a couple problems with this, Mom. First of all, I am not Esau. That should be an obvious statement, but I'm not Esau. His voice is going to be that of Jacob, not of Esau. Not only that, he's like, I'm not as hairy as Esau. I do not do the game like Esau. I am not. Nothing about us is alike. We might be twins, but that's about all we got going for us. And so Rebecca comes up with this great scheme. She goes and gets food. She's going to prepare it. Gets all this done. Jacob puts on Esau's clothing, so he smells like Esau. They then put on like goat fur. It's not fur, it's hair, right? Goat hair to make him hairier, like his brother. They go to extremes to have their father buying the lie of which child this is, because, again, he's blind. This to me is so sad. I get so heartbroken at this because Jacob does what his mom wants to. He could have stood up and said no. Rebecca just is longing for Jacob to receive the blessing, regardless of what her husband's already said, and goes outside of that scope. Esau's just doing what he was told. Esau's out in the field looking for game. So he's just going about what his father said. This is so sad that they play their children like this. I find this so disheartening. And I find it disheartening that Jacob goes along with a lie. And not just a little lie. One lie always leads to another. One sin leads to another. I tell you guys that all the time, and this is so true. Because they're lying on multiple levels, trying to portray that he is someone he's not. So, Jacob goes in, and he goes to Isaac. Isaac's like, come here, my child. And he hands out this game and goes, wow, you got that really fast. Remember, Esau went out to go get the game. He has to go hunting. He has to find the right kind of game. He has to then clean it, prepare it, do all this work. It's not an easy task, and it's not an immediate thing. However, Rebecca just found what was there, got it done, and created a nice meal for him. And he's like, wow, you did that fast. And he's like, oh, God led me to the game. God led me to what that was. Again, another lie. One lie always leads to another, because once you begin a lie, you have to keep lies up to keep the story going, right? To keep you in that place. So he sits there and he tells him, well, your voice sounds like Jacob, but you feel like Esau. And then he leans in and, you smell like Esau. Okay, well, if you smell like him and you feel like him, you must be Esau. That's just, you must be Esau. And so he gives Jacob this amazing blessing. And it's a firstborn blessing, and it's absolutely astounding. And gives it to him. Well, then, wouldn't you know it, Esau arrives. And Esau arrives only to find out that his brother got his blessing. And Isaac realizes what has happened. Isaac comes to this realization, I blessed the wrong kid. I was waiting for Esau. I've been tricked. Now, the Bible doesn't tell us the conversation that happened, but I can't imagine the conversation that happened between Isaac and Rebekah, and then Isaac and his children, and Rebekah and the children, and all the kerfuffle that happened here. Because that's absolutely insane, y'all. Like, all these things that are just going wrong in this moment. Okay, I digress. So Esau's like, wait a minute, what is now left for me? He got that blessing. What am I gonna get? So Isaac gives him a separate blessing. And by the end of Genesis 27, Jacob hears that Esau is going to plot to take his life because he is so mad. They are mad at each other. I think it stems back. They're mad at each other that the birthright was sold. They're mad that they've kind of been at odds ever since they were in the womb, right? They kind of argued in the womb. All these things, and it's just coming to a head, to a point that Jacob fears for his life because Esau is now fully aware of what Jacob has done to the extent that he made it happen. His lies, his deceit, his wickedness, as well as that of his mother. And so he begins to fear for his life. And he's like, oh no, Esau's going to kill me. It's just a matter of time before he kills me because we did that wrong. We just did that wrong. It's really fascinating when you go through and you read these accounts that you get an understanding of the people of the Bible. It is absolutely fascinating. And then after all this happens, he makes it clear to Jacob, I don't want you to marry the Hittite women like Esau did because they're a problem. So make sure you marry a good woman. Okay? It's absolutely astounding to me how favoritism of these parents has led to ultimate betrayal and has really torn this family apart because the brothers hate each other. The brothers literally hate each other now. The brothers probably have a unfavorable opinion of their parents, and there's a huge distrust happening in this family, all because of favoritism and sin. See what happens when these things become prevalent? Bad things. Nothing good ever comes out of this. So don't do these things. It's not good. Okay. That ends Genesis 27. Y'all, I gotta tell you, Jacob and Esau from moment one are trouble. They are such interesting boys. And it's a reminder that no family is perfect, first of all. Can we just say that? No family is perfect. I think too often we sit here and we go, well, if we were like so-and-so, or if we were like so-and-so. Listen, the only perfect person that ever lived was Jesus. And he still had human parents on this earth that had to raise him, and that was difficult enough. You think that being perfect would be easy. That actually makes some things harder. But aside from Christ, we're all fallen people. And Adam and Eve, because, they were brought into, created of a very good world, just the downfall of what they chose. But we don't have a lot of these goodness of the family. There's always things that go wrong. Even David, who's one of the greats, right, commits murder and adultery. So we have to be reminded that we're all fallen. We all do wrong. And none of us are perfect. But it's interesting when we read these accounts and we see what some of these people do and we're like, okay, that's the route you're going to choose to go with that. Sure. My friends, we have to be careful to live a life holy unto the Lord. We have to be careful to make sure that we do the right thing all the time. We don't want to be playing favorites. We don't want to be doing trickery to have our own way. We want to be honest and forthright. And I think that that's an important takeaway here because one lie did lead to another. And it changes the scope of your family dynamic. It changes the scope of how you see each other and how you deal with each other and how you're going to deal with others. So try to be a forthright person. Use good words. Be honest. And for the love of Pete, don't sell something just because you're hangry. All right? That's the next point. Don't sell something just because you're hangry. If you're really hungry, if you're really tired, if you're frustrated, that is not the time to make a big personal decision. We follow a lot of Dave Ramsey, and I like what he says. He goes, give yourself 24 hours before making a big purchase because you need to be thinking it through because you're not always thinking it through in the moment. And that that logic can be used for so many other places in our life. Don't make big decisions. Don't make decisions that can be life altering in those moments when you're happy. Happy, when you're overly sad, when you're not in the right place, when you're hangry, when you're frustrated. Even sometimes you get too joyful, you might see past things because you're so joyful. So all these things is part of that. I don't want you to be making those kind of decisions in those moments because it can cost you. And it may not be your birthright, but it can be a lot of other things that will cause you annoyance, maybe pain, maybe suffering, whatever. I know a lot of people who, in the moment of when they're sad, have done things and they regret it. We don't want to live a life of regrets. So be thinking clearly. And if you're not sure about something, or even if you can remind yourself, is this a big decision? Or have I really thought this through? Take extra time to think it through. Most things don't have to be done right in that moment. And for the love of Pete, don't sell it for a cup of stew. I don't know how good that stew was. I doubt it was like the greatest thing since sliced bread. But it was just in the moment, right? When things are in the moment, we tend not to think clearly. Jacob and Esau is a great example of that. We don't always think things through clearly, but we need to. God gave us free will. He gave us minds to think and understand and separate things. And so we need to be sure that we are doing that and that we are thinking things through clearly. I hope you guys are enjoying this study of the book of Genesis. I love just sitting here and taking these moments apart and just reminding us of people and places and moments so that we go, yeah, I remember that. Because it's all important from Genesis to Revelation. And that's the goal here, is to teach you guys the breakdown of the Bible, to help you to remember it and to understand it and to see how the whole picture fits together and points toward Christ, essentially, right? He's the one that's going to come and cleanse us of our sin, these kind of sinful things, right? We need him to redeem us because, as you see, even though there's people in the Bible that we are called righteous and good and blameless, sometimes we still fall. So they still fall. And so we need a savior. And so a lot of these moments just point to that reminder of that. I'm so glad you guys are joining me for this. So next time we'll get back in Genesis. We're going to be going through a little more of their life. And then we're going to, here in a couple chapters, be getting to one of my favorite guys, which is Joseph. And I can't wait for that because he is one of my favorites. I say that about a lot of people. My husband says that the Bible can't all be your favorite. It is. It's all my favorite. Thank you guys so much for being part of Men in Ministry. Thank you for just watching, sharing, and giving me your 2 cents. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys next time for the next study in the book of Genesis.